No, no, we just, you know what, we came here and spent the summer when I was little, and I just was like 7, and I just absorbed it like a sponge. By the end of the summer, I was in a beach club with other kids. So we were Saint Jean de Luz, and it was gorgeous.
I have a theory though, because I learned it as a kid as well, and many, many years ago to practice, and it's lodged in there somewhere.
Yeah, as if I'm trying to access that chip in my brain. If you don't use it, though, it does go away.
So we won't do this whole interview in French.
Will be the world's shortest, least interesting interview.
There we go. Au revoir.
Yeah.
Okay. So you had welcome to Monte Carlo.
Thank you.
Have you been here before?
I've only been by Monte Carlo. I actually shot an epic production of The Love Boat back in 1985 in Nice. I played a cyclist, like a Lance Armstrong type, and I was up in the hills in Nice with professional French cyclists who were very kind to me. They made sure I did not die, and I had the best time here. It was so much fun.
So knowing what Monte Carlo sort of represents, being here and spending a week here, talk to me about how you would describe this place.
Well, it's so beautiful that you really have to every once in a while stop and smell the money, the roses, and what can you say about Monte Carlo that people haven't said? It's gorgeous, it's impressive, it's intimidating. I don't think there's, it's the only place in the world that makes Los Angeles look like a used car lot. There's every single car is worth about $250,000, and they're all 3 weeks old. Look at this. It's not dissimilar to California. What I don't understand, I have to have some native explain to me, is how the climate changes so dramatically from, say, here to Paris, which is not that far, and it's a completely different ecosystem, and the climate is completely different. And even in the winter, you come down from Paris, and it's warmer here, and it's just, I don't know, it's amazing. It's gorgeous. It does look like California, except the water's bluer.
You're here with a wonderful show. Talk to me about Vampire Diaries, the show you're
Well,
with.
it's so funny. I'm kind of here as a free agent. I did the Vampire Diaries, but I did all of 5 episodes, and they killed me off. And that was always the understanding. Julie Plec, who is executive producer on the show, called me. We'd known each other for years. Is that annoying at all? That dog? That's friendly pooch.
Even a dog is fed.
Who else can I bark at? A dog's worth $250,000. Okay, so yeah, so Julie Plec, whom I have known for years, called me up and said, "You want to come do a few episodes? We'll probably do about 3 episodes, and we'll kill you off. You're going to be Candace Acola's dad." And I said, "Yeah, sure, that sounds like fun." And then they liked it, and they decided they would add a couple more episodes, and they'd give me a heroic death, which they did. And it was great fun. It's really fun for me because I went to school in the South to go to Atlanta and shoot. Although I have to say, the first time I was there was in August, and there's this restaurant I wanted to go to, and I walked 1.5 miles from the hotel to this restaurant, and I passed 2 other human beings, and I had to take a cab back. It was 98 degrees, 95% humidity, and I had forgotten what the South is like in the summer, and that's daunting. So these guys, they're cold winters and hot summers, and so that when they're out there at night, as they always are, shooting, I take my hat off to them.
So since you're here, kind of like I said, as a free agent and out meeting the fans and talking to your peers here, how do people most recognize you? You said Love Boat, and you're on that.
Yeah. No, from Heroes. From Heroes. By far, the most people recognize me from it. It had a huge following, and we actually came here 5 years ago and did a world tour, like a publicity tour. We went to Munich and Paris and London, and it was like being in A Hard Day's Night. It was crazy because the show was just breaking, and it was huge. So that's it. The Heroes was in like 250 territories around the world, and it was only on for 4 years, but it did make an impression, and people do remember that. A lot of people are afraid of me because I was a bad guy, or a scary guy, and they think they have to be afraid. But
How is that for you too? A lot of, you hear a lot of actors say, especially ones who work on TV series, that when you're shooting, you're sort of in a vacuum. You're working on your cast,
Right.
you're in that. So what is it like to come out to places like this, like television festival, and meet the fans and meet your peers?
well, it's fantastic, and especially out of the States, because you realize that, as you say, when working in a vacuum, you go into a dark sound stage, and it's, 6 o'clock in the morning, and the grips are yawning, and everyone's exhausted, and you realize that these things you're doing and these images you're creating are going out all over the world, and it's often very hard to remember that when you're doing it, and it's probably a good thing not to remember that when you're doing it, because it takes a little bit of the edge off when you're not thinking about the millions of people who are going to be seeing it. But it really, yeah, it's really fun to see people who've been watching the shows you've been doing and enjoying them. It's very humbling, actually.
Just talk to me quickly about your time, short-lived on the Vampire Diaries. I know we were here last year with some of the cast there, and just really fans kind of losing their minds.
Yeah.
Cast members, what was it like being on that set? Are you a vampire fan? Are you into that role?
I was never a huge vampire fan, but once Julie called me and I said, "Well, let me start watching the show," I got hooked. I mean, it's really well done, and it's for a story that's so big and sprawling. They're quite disciplined in how they break story and how they keep story going, and it was fun to watch. And we'd be on location in some small town in Georgia, and there'd be women from Germany and from England who had traveled there just to get a glimpse of Ian or whoever it was on the show, and yeah, those I mean, vampire fans, sci-fi fans in general are pretty fanatical, and actually Heroes was quite a bit like that too, because there were always paparazzi and fans around, mostly for Milo and for Hayden and the youngsters, as usual. They get all the glory. They have all the hair and get all the glory. It's so unfair. I had all that hair once.
What's coming up next for you? What are you working on?
Oh, I'm continuing on The Office as far as I know. That's what I'm hearing or starting to understand, and that's been tremendous fun. It's the polar opposite of something like Vampire Diaries or Heroes, not just because it's a comedy, but just technically. Heroes in particular was so painstaking in how things were shot. You're here, you're in focus. You're here, you're out of focus. This is good, that's no good. And there's a lot of that. And on a show like The Office, it's shot very documentary style, and the camera basically finds you. So you just go in and you do your thing, and they have like a spy cam, and they'll be across the room, and you may see them, you may not. And you're doing your scene, and you're not even sure that anybody was filming it. It's fantastic. It's incredibly liberating. And of course, sometimes then they're right up in your grill with the camera, but a lot of times you're not even entirely sure where they are, which is amazing, because I used to do all these things with a swing and tilt lens on Heroes, where it's this great lens which can keep something in extreme focus close and also in focus in the background, and it's very disorienting because even the human eye doesn't work that way. But if I had to raise something up like this, they would have a C-stand, and my hand would have to stop right there, or it was no good. And I'd be there for 2 hours, just incredibly painful, and it looked amazing. And when it was over, you forgot all about that because it looked great. But that's the difference in the sort of the technical, production value stuff. And there is something very liberating about. It's like, no, just go there, we'll find you. Like, really? Okay, I trust you. Is there any filming? Are you shooting this? So that's been great. And of course, it's so well written, and everyone's so damn funny. And being funny is the hardest thing to do on film. Oh, yes, absolutely. And comic performances are completely overlooked year after year after year. If I had a vote back, somebody like Bill Murray in Ghostbusters would have won an Oscar, because as he said, you tell a joke in April and you hope they laugh in December. You're completely, there's no audience. You're completely divorced from, and he's funny in every frame. And it's easier to be dramatic than it is to be funny. Who was the great English actor who And on his deathbed, someone said, how are you? How is it? And he said, dying is easy, comedy is hard. And that's, I think that's true. I'm hoping not to find out about the first part for quite a while, but I can tell you that comedy is hard.
Well, I applaud you.